Welcome back to Sports Rule Pod. I'm Nick Elam. Here we explore innovations in sports and the journeys of individuals who make sports great. And in today's interview segment, we're joined by Dr. Liz Wanless. She is the Associate Professor of Sport Management at Indiana University, Indianapolis, and the Director of their Sports Innovation Institute. And Dr. Wanless will share some of the exciting innovations related to AI going on in the sports world. And she'll share what it's like to be a national champion in shot put. In today's innovation segment, we'll explore a concept or an event that might allow Major League Baseball to draw over 1 million fans through the turnstiles in a single day. And in the next to last segment, we'll revisit the next to last game of the 2025 World Series. Let's get to it. We are so excited to be joined by Dr. Liz Wanless. She is an associate professor of sport management at Indiana University, Indianapolis, and also the director of the Sports Innovation Institute there. Dr. Wanless, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here, Nick. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's start by, I'll leave it up to you to tell us some of the exciting things going on at the Sports Innovation Institute.
Sure. So I direct the Sport Innovation Institute at IU Indianapolis. We're embedded right in the city. We are part of the fabric of this amazing sports scene in Indianapolis. And our overarching set of goals is to develop software, develop data pipelines, develop data insights, and support the amazing sport infrastructure in Indianapolis.
So if you're willing and able to share, who are some of your partners at the Sports Innovation Institute that you're serving?
Absolutely. We work for ticket brokers for the NCAA, the EVMM partners. We also work for the Horizon League. We're developing sponsorship software, sponsorship tracking software for this particular group. We are working with a group. We have a proposal in for High Rocks to do economic impact. We are working with the Indy Chamber regarding creating some statistics around gender representation in sport. We really run the gamut. We serve teams, professional organizations, organizations and agencies that serve the teams. We have a footprint in just about every area of sport.
So it sounds like some amazing things going on at the time. Are there some innovations that are already complete and up and running that you're especially proud of that have come through Sports Innovation Institute?
Yeah, absolutely. So the software development for the Horizon League is one of my favorite projects for a variety of reasons. So first is that we were able to develop a really strong relationship with the individual in charge of sponsorship for the organization. And empathy was such a big part of this project. Empathy paired with AI, and I'll explain. So we were able to learn all of the ways that traditional software and software offered by larger software companies has really failed their customers. We coin ourselves in the Sport Innovation Institute as custom built for indie sport. And that's exactly what we took on. So we learned all of the pain points with software that individuals use for selling sponsorship or in sport in general. And a lot of it has to do with shoehorning the customer into a software that you've developed with all of these capabilities, forcing them to pay for all of them, and not meeting the customer really where they are. Well, what had prevented that in the past was that it takes a long time to develop software. But this has changed. With artificial intelligence and the advent of large language models, the coding process becomes sleeker and much more efficient. I worked with a student who had worked in software development for about 3 years before he arrived at IU Indianapolis and was kind of upskilling in different ways in the data science category mostly. But he was able to produce in 2 months what it normally would have taken 3 years to execute. And we were able to work together in a collaborative space in a different way because of the advent of AI. We were using a co-pilot within our software development process. And this is now a software that is completely customized and designed for the needs of this particular customer. And this is also one of the favorite projects because we feel like we're leading the space in this moment. So much and so many times in academia, you follow what organizations are doing and you copy it, you replicate it so that students know when they get into the real world, so to speak, and work that they have an idea of what's going on. But in this case, with customization at scale, we feel as though we are leading that space. So that definitely, it runs the gamut from being able to truly empathize with your client partner, having that wonderful relationship, to then using emerging technologies to lead the space in software development in this particular area. So there's a lot of reasons why that one was one of my favorites to talk about.
And I'm so glad you brought it to AI because that's something that I definitely wanted to hit on because that's an area of interest and expertise for you,
Yeah.
including your research also. I'm curious, from a sports fan's perspective, someone who watches and attends lots of sports or even participates in sports, what are some ways that AI is being used in the sports world? Some ways that might be obvious, some ways that might not be so obvious.
Sure. So I like to start these AI conversations with, I think, in large part, the conversation surrounding artificial intelligence and what it can do has taken a fearful turn, meaning the larger conversation around AI and what it can do for various sectors, in large part, is who is it going to replace? How is this going to be dangerous? How is this going to kind of crush what my view of what humans should be responsible for? And I feel like this comes from a place of mystery is margin, meaning, and that mystery is margin saying is widely used, but Rodney Brooks he's a roboticist from MIT. He was the one who coined it in this particular area, that when something is moving fast and it's something that we don't know much about, and it's going to have a large impact on what we're doing, there's money to be made there. So I would be very careful with the sources that you kind of attribute to being AI experts. Sometimes there are individuals who want to take advantage of the money that they can make by boasting about what it will do or fear-mongering, etc. So I like to start there, is that you can think about artificial intelligence and artificial intelligence tools such as machine learning, large language models, to not only help us do our jobs better, but raise our expectations for what is possible. So when you are watching a broadcast and you are, watching your favorite sports teams, and win probability shows up on the screen and you see coaches making critical decisions, machine learning, artificial intelligence has likely played a role in accelerating that process, but it has not replaced the people who need to interpret that information or the coach instinct that is so important for making good decisions. I mean, I don't know if you watched the Indiana University and Miami championship game. I was, of course,
Of course I did. Yes. Yes.
I was, of course, glued to the screen. But there were some decisions that Cignetti made that artificial intelligence or machine learning supported analyses would not have said, like, hey, on fourth down, that may not have been a good decision, turned out to be that a representative moment for that quarterback and his season in its entirety, the way that he played and the way that he was able to move that fourth down to a touchdown. Anyway, what I'm saying is it, as consumers, can raise our expectations for customization and personalization. And I think we can dream big rather than be so scared of, who it will replace or how it will replace us.
You mentioned win probability charts. I think that's one of the most fun things to look at after a game that has a crazy finish to it, to see the win probability chart basically go haywire at the very end of the game.
Yeah, it's
And
awesome.
yeah, so speaking about AI, what are some ways away from work that you use AI?
Oh my gosh. I'm really glad that you asked this question because I think I'm going to pursue our local library to hold some seminars, but I have used AI for like brainstorming, so large language models, ChatGPT, for brainstorming ideas, for creating invitations for different events. I had an official Thanksgiving invite from my family this year that took me, a snap to make. I we use it for fun with my kids to create fun images. We have a pet and we created some fun images of her in different costumes. I mean, there are lots of ways, but I will say what it has done for me is it has created a comprehensive and efficient brainstorming aid, if you will, that not all of its ideas are amazing, but it helps in a comprehensive approach to brainstorming. I think where it still falls short, and that's why I really look for the voices of people who are working in it, working with it, the developers, engineers, people who people who are tasked with using it in their everyday for what its capabilities are. And so it still falls really short in terms of analyzing data or making model choices about how to analyze data. It still falls very short in that regard. So when you work in it, you realize that there's still a long way to go in terms of really embodying a human-like decision-making process.
You mentioned before that AI is intimidating in some ways to a lot of people, and people are fearful in the ways that it will be used or how it will change uh, things, the workforce, the economy, things like that. You not only have accepted it, but and not even just embraced it, but you have decided to be a forerunner in leading this, and that had to be a bold decision when you decided you're really going to lean into AI. Do you remember when you decided that that was really going to be one of your top areas of focus? And was there another area of focus that you had at the time that you've had to put on the back burner?
That's a great question. There's probably a couple pivotal moments where AI adoption became a mainstream workspace for me. The first was that podcast by Rodney Brooks. He outlined his Seven Deadly Sins of AI Adoption article that he'd produced. He was sending out a warning to everybody. Hey, people are sensationalizing this, that there are people who want to make money about what this is. And because it uses, he calls them suitcase words, but what is it? He gives life to the idea that we are talking about it in ways that have so much meaning that it's hard to pinpoint exactly what it does. So, for example, the word learning, we say machine learning is the state of the art in data analysis. Well, what does it mean to learn? Is it like learning to tie your shoes? Is it learning to execute a concept? What types of learning are you really talking about? So he acknowledged that the conversation around AI is extremely vague, that people want to make money off of kind of dictating what it is and sensationalizing what it can do and striking fear. And that Seven Deadly Sins of AI forced me to want to look into it, meaning figure out, okay, what is this really? How can we represent those voices of the people who are actually working in the space? And then with the advent of large language models, that really sent me into overdrive in terms of harnessing it as a work assistant and harnessing it for not just data analysis, because machine learning is a type of data analysis that I used throughout through my work, that where I am forced to analyze different data sets. I've used it throughout, but really leaning in on artificial intelligence and large language models when they were invented and exploring what they can and cannot do and realizing the limitations there. So those are two critical moments. That podcast that came out, so thank goodness for podcasts and producing this type of content, because you never know who is going to take it and run. And then that second moment being when large language models were invented, and knowing what a critical moment that was for being able to create, execute in the technical space, everything from software development to insights. And that has replaced, it really has replaced I've leaned in way in on client work, because that's where the innovation is happening. And it has replaced in large part those research studies that are completely removed from client, or from, moved from the context, because you're trying to make something that's generalizable, right? When you execute research studies. So I've really narrowed in on the client space to spark innovation, to spark future research studies, rather than the other way around. So it really has been a turn. It really has been a turn. But for me, I view it as potential, and being able to raise our expectations for customization at scale.
In the world of academia, sometimes the individuals conducting that scholarly research are separated or detached from the actual implementation of it. You've got such an exciting reality right now where you are so involved in not only the research, but also the implementation itself. Thinking about that research process, because you have published so many peer-reviewed studies in sport management journals and outlets with so many different co-authors. What has been the way that you have, what's been the approach that you've used to network and to be able to connect with the people who you've co-authored with?
I think this is a really good question, and I'm going to answer very authentically, and that's with a task orientation. So when I see a research project, I, in my mind, create an organizational structure around it based on the needs of that project. So if I need to write a literature review for predicting the diffusion of natural language processing into the sport industry, I know exactly who to call. Chad Seyfried from Louisiana State University, who's been an amazing co-author of mine. It also helps that he has the same sense of urgency that I do about these particular projects, but that understanding the task at hand, and then reading and knowing who might be a great individual to execute, I literally write them. I say exactly what I need help with. And a lot of people are ready to opt in at that point, with that kind of clarity surrounding a research project.
I love that. One of the most important lessons that any leader or manager learns is to understand who on your team or who out there in the field has the interest and expertise in certain areas, and what their strengths are, and how you can work together in a mutually beneficial way. That's awesome. You mentioned writing literature reviews. Thinking about the structure of a standard scholarly peer-reviewed article that has the parts of an introduction, literature review, methods section, findings, and discussion. Is there one of those sections that you enjoy writing the most? And is there one that you enjoy writing the least?
Yes. 1000%, check, yes to all of that. I write the methods sections and the results sections. Though that is the place where I can refine my analysis skills. So that's where I want to spend my time. Being a competitive shot putter post-collegiately, kind of ironed that into my being, is that if I'm not doing something that is improving a skill set, it feels strange or off or misplaced. So I really invest in those method sections. I like those the most, and the data collection, data analysis, and then the results. There is not 1 ounce of me that wants to discuss this in written form. Once I know what it is, once I hash it out in a conversation with my colleagues, there's not 1 ounce of me that wants to put that onto paper. There are lots of people, though, like Michael Narain from Brock University, who really love to pontificate in that written space. I am I move so quickly to the solution deployment phase, especially when we're working with clients, that I want to see this in action. I don't want to spend time, you know, writing about it on paper. But those discussion pieces of the paper are very important to contextualizing that analysis and what it means and what it can do for the readership. So I realize the importance of it. And I almost always outsource those discussion sections.
We're joined by Dr. Liz Wanless, the Associate Professor of Sport Management at Indiana University, Indianapolis, and the director of their Sports Innovation Institute. As an undergrad, you attended the prestigious Bates College in Maine. One very important question I have for you is what do you believe is the best way to dress a lobster roll?
I never had lobster while I was in Maine. Does that completely disappoint you?
It shocks me. I won't say it disappoints me, but it shocks me.
I was, a Midwest transplant to New England. I was more likely to grab a cheeseburger. But that's a significant amounts of ketchup, I would say, would be the appropriate way to dress a cheeseburger.
You and I are in agreement in that. Also, you were a philosophy major. Now,
Yeah.
I'm sure your career and your obligations have taken, I would think, would have probably taken you a little bit away from the world of philosophy, or maybe I'm wrong about that. Do you miss being immersed in the world of philosophy, or do you find ways to stay connected to that, or do you find that there's ways to apply that to what you're doing now?
Well, philosophy has invaded every part of my workspace and even personal life. My philosophy classes at Bates College forced me to think in different ways, to use support for what I was thinking about, and kind of pulled out of me logical expressions of thought. So that finds itself everywhere now. The way that I think, what I do, and the way that I am able to relate to clients. There's sometimes when I work in the technical space and I'm also working in the strategic space, it's difficult for people to realize that I am an expert at both of those things because not a lot of people truly embody significant expertise and work in the technical space, and then significant work and expertise in the strategic space. And I should correct that and say that there are not a lot of people, but not a lot of people see people that way. Is that how I should rephrase it? Is that there are people who are able to embody both of those spaces, but people don't view it that way. Couple into it that I'm also a woman. It's, this is kind of like a perfect storm for kind of misinterpreting what someone can represent in any of the conversations. And I really attribute that being able to talk to someone, relate to someone, a significant curiosity for the way that they think, a significant appreciation for diversity in thought. I absolutely attribute that to my education at Bates, formally in the academic environment, but also beyond. Bates College embodied that spirit, that egalitarian spirit, and that all people can be all things. And I definitely see that as a huge part of my experience now in ways I never thought at the time that they would be.
You mentioned earlier that you were a shot putter. The part that you left out was that while at Bates College, you were a 4-time All-American, a 2-time national champion in shot put. And before we talk a little bit more about shot put, I'm curious, obviously shot put was your best track and field sport. Did you have a second best track and field sport?
Well, you could say that it was the weight throw, but I need to make an admission is that at Bates College, I only did shot put. But my track career was a little different from most. I was the D3 to D1 transfer before that was a thing. When it was difficult to transfer. Now we can't even imagine a moment where student athletes have a difficult time transferring. But NCAA rules at the time were as such that you made it difficult to transfer from one institution to the other. even though I had graduated from Bates when I went to the University of Florida. So I was a D3 athlete and a national champion, as you said. Thanks for highlighting those accomplishments, taking me back to the day. But I also had a year at the University of Florida where I was a Division I All-American and SEC Athlete of the Week, and then continued on professionally competing for the New York Athletic Club, Nike, and Asics. So that was just a different route for track and field. But at the University of Florida, I competed in the weight throw in a handful of meets.
Are there any track and field events where you would be a complete disaster?
You can imagine I'm not the best 5K runner.
Actually, I wouldn't be surprised at all if you told me that you could run a 5K in like 15 minutes.
Well,
Yeah.
I have a back injury, so that prevents the running thing now. But back in the day, when you're training for shot put, you are motivating that fast twitch system. You're motivating that part of it, and you're not training for long distances. So to compete in a long distance race would have been a disaster. It would have been a disaster.
When you talk with people about shot put, people who are not immersed in the world of shot put like me, I'm not. Is there a certain term or a phrase that people misuse that makes you cringe a little bit?
I don't think so. I don't think I've heard anyone totally abuse shot put, but in terms of it not being the premier track event, I think if more people really knew and tried it and kind of had experience with it, that it would develop a better fan following. The other side of that is that because it's one person at a time throwing in the circle, it doesn't have quite the viewing. It's almost like golf in a way, but it doesn't quite have the spectator appeal as something like a 100-meter dash, where people are pitted against each other and it's an all-out battle to the finish. But throwing shot put is very much you against you, and it's an amazing display of physicality. There were women like Nadine Kleinhardt from Germany that I competed against. It felt, I'd probably look up her height information now. It felt like she was 7 feet tall and as athletic as LeBron James. I kid you not. She was absolutely amazing and was a medalist throughout an international medalist throughout her tenure as a shot putter. But there's an incredible physicality around that. So whereas I don't see people abuse terminology around shot put, probably because they don't know what that terminology is. But if more people had the time to think about what shot put is, I think it'd have a better fan following.
Intercollegiate track and field is so interesting in a way because it's technically a team sport, but it's so individualized in nature. And here you were, a superstar on a intercollegiate track and field team. Did you see yourself as a leader? Did others on the track and field who might be doing completely different events look to you for leadership, or was it more siloed than that?
Oh, that's really interesting. And track teams are siloed. I will have to say my Division III track, you would expect this, my Division III track team was more cohesive than the track team at the University of Florida. But this is where I discovered part of my brand, and I think that's what you're looking for with that type of question. But part of my brand was being able to relentlessly support people, even as I was competing myself. Because sometimes when you're competing yourself or when you're working for something yourself, there's an insecurity that develops. There's a validation that needs to be met by external circles. But I always had that internal drive, and so that's where people were. So that's where people would come to me. That's what I became known for, is that when people did great, when people accomplished things, that I was the person who was rooting that on. And I had a lot of gratification from that early on, is that you feel a part of other people's success when you take on that, when you decide you're not going to be threatened by other people doing amazing things, rather inspired, that you feel a part of their success and you almost feel it with them. It's that empathy moment. And that's something that I'm really proud of, that you look back and are like, okay, who was I at a young age? And that's something that I'm extremely, extremely proud of. Still to this day, I'm the one who's willing to support people who are achieving great things.
What's the most nervous you ever were for a shot put event?
Oh gosh. Nervous for a shot put event. Probably my first competition abroad when I competed in Greece for the first time. It was on the island of Thessaloniki, and I was very nervous for it. But those nerves beforehand, but those nerves quickly dissolved with a little bit of Nora Jones, to be honest with you. A lot of people listen to pump up music before their events. I was definitely trying to calm it down. I was trying to bring the energy back to a normal level. So a little Nora Jones, and then just that looking around and feeling like you were in the right place at the right time. And that was an awesome meet because I faced Nadine Kleinhardt in that meet and I had her beat in the first round. That was a tremendous accomplishment. Now, granted, this was not her premier meet for her, but I did. I had her beat in that first round. But yeah, there was a lot of nerves on that one. A lot of nerves.
With you being an innovation expert and an innovation driver, is there a certain innovation that you would like to see implemented in the sport of shot put?
Oh, interesting. Uh, I would definitely like to see some type of marking system, especially for indoor track, where a computer vision technology involved. There are some times where you felt like your throw was mismarked. And sometimes it's really hard for people to see where it lands, especially if they're not standing near it. So I think a computer vision technology to mark that would be pretty awesome. Make it go faster too.
You've had, as we wind down here, you've had such an amazing journey from being a champion athlete to an accomplished researcher and teacher and educator, innovator. When the story of Dr. Liz Wanless's journey is written and we flip to the acknowledgments section, who are some of the main people we're going to see in that acknowledgement section that
Oh my
you attribute
goodness.
your success to?
Yeah, that's great. And I can paint a broad brush over people that reacted to my sense of urgency and significant task and goal orientation with a sense of curiosity rather than a skepticism. And there have been a lot of people in my life who have supported me in that way, given me the space to be myself. You know, when you're at a Division III highly academic school and you say you want to be a professional shot putter, it would be very logical for someone to say, is there anything else? Is there anything else you'd like to do? But there were people who reacted with curiosity, supported those opportunities, and those people will definitely be in the acknowledgement sections. That same that same aspect applies to my professional life, and I am surrounded by my dream set of leadership and colleagues for the way that they allow me to pursue innovation in ways that seem different, pursue research in ways that seem different, but so far have been financially lucrative, which I think has made it easier on everyone to accept that those types of goals when they make money. That's a good thing. But I think that being able to work in a space like this where I can pursue that with a sense of urgency. So are we looking for name dropping? So the people that I work with now, Dr. David Pierce, Dr. Jeff Sherman, Dr. Raphael Bahamonde is our dean. Peter Altenberger is the associate dean, and Stuart Warden is the associate dean of research. And these individuals have allowed me to work in my dream job. And who knew that my dream job would just be the avenue to pursue goals in the way that I want to pursue them and to see success by my own definition. And who knew that that's what it was? You spend a lot of time trying to figure out what your dream job might be, and you almost always associate it with external qualities about the place or what it would be. But having spent some time at the top institutions for what I do, that only until I was here did I realize my dream job. So all of the people who reacted with curiosity, the people who create a space where you can be yourself, and no matter how intense your sense of urgency might seem, or how kind of emerging and on the fringe some of your innovation ideas might be, that they support those things. I think that those are the individuals that definitely deserve the acknowledgments.
That's awesome. Yes, definitely looking for name dropping there. So thank you
There
for
you
that.
go. There you go. I got my current workspace. I'll leave. There are many people from the past, but I'll pinpoint my current workspace and highlight the people that I work with now.
So that was my last question. Next, I'll just leave it to you if there's anything else you'd like to share, if you'd like to share ways to connect with you or the Sports Innovation Institute.
Oh, I would love to. We're the Sport Innovation Institute at IU Indianapolis. We are a team of faculty and also graduate students in the Applied Data Science Master's Program at IU Indianapolis. If you're a prospective student, if you are faculty, a faculty collaborator, or if you are a sport organization in the Indianapolis area that definitely wants something customized regarding technology, give us a call. My email is Wanless, or maybe Nick, this is something you can post along with the podcast at iu.edu. Not everybody knows how to spell Wanless, but please give us, we jump at the chance for conversations. You've got some ideas, some dreams of your own, connect with us.
Well, thank you so much. Dr. Liz Wanless, thank you for joining us today. This has been so great.
Yeah, of course. Continue on, Dr. Nick Elam. Keep going with this. I want to see more podcasts.
Right. Thank you. Here at our innovation segment, we discuss innovations, good and bad, throughout the sports world. Most of the time, these will be playing rules innovations, but in some cases, they could be innovations of other types. And remember, we encourage you to submit your ideas to be discussed on the show for innovations in the sports world. You can submit those ideas by email at nick.elam@sportsrulepod.com. You can also submit those at X at sportsrulepod and on Instagram at sportsrulepod. The innovation we'll discuss in this episode is a concept I call MLB Day, and it's a day that would feature day-night doubleheaders across Major League Baseball. It would happen on the first day of action after returning back from the All-Star break, essentially a kickoff to the second half of the season. And this is a concept that I had initially proposed. As far as I know, this is an original idea of mine that I proposed in an interview with Jeff Passan in 2018 when he was still with Yahoo Sports. And if you look back at that article, you see a number of different ideas that I had proposed at the time. Some I don't believe in quite as strongly as I did before. Some I don't believe in at all anymore. But one idea I really do believe in just as strongly today as I did back in that initial interview when I proposed the idea is the idea of MLB Day, a day of day-night doubleheaders across Major League Baseball to kick off the second half of the season. And on a scale of 0 to 10 on how good of an idea I think this is, I truly believe this is a 10 out of 10 idea with little to no downside. Now, currently, the All-Star Game is meant to be the crown jewel of All-Star Week, with a build-up that includes the Rising Stars game, the MLB Draft, the Celebrity Softball Game, and the Home Run Derby leading up to the All-Star Game as the crown jewel. But the All-Star Game, even though it's great in many cases, and in 2025 it was amazing, still it's not quite the spectacle that it used to be, and it's not quite the spectacle that it needs to be in order to be that type of a crown jewel event. So there are different variations of the way that MLB Day could take the place as the crown jewel of that week. The variation that I favor is that you would actually extend the All-Star break all the way through Friday, and that you would start back on Saturday with this full slate of day-night doubleheaders. You could also potentially have the day-night doubleheaders on Friday start back on Friday as they do currently. You can also shuffle and add events to All-Star Week compared to what it is currently, and I'll discuss an idea that I have in that regard in a different episode. But what's really exciting about the potential of MLB Day is that it could serve not only as the culminating event of All-Star Week and truly create that spectacle that you would want, but it can serve as a celebration and a kickoff to the second half of the year. You could create really an opening day type of feel at various ballparks and sites. You could have block parties around the ballparks, particularly between the two games of the day, and really make it exciting. And it would be a unique opportunity where, when you think about 30 separate admissions across the league, you could realistically and likely draw over 1 million fans in one day. And I think just the concept of having one day, 30 games, 1 million fans coming to the ballpark and having proceeds go to Stand Up to Cancer or some other charity or organization of MLB's choice, I think would just be amazing. And so it would be amazing whether you're attending games in person. It would also be amazing if you're home and watching these games on TV, being able to flip around and see just a tidal wave of baseball games throughout the day. Now, in a lot of ways, teams and people associated with hosting baseball games don't love day-night doubleheaders. And again, the difference between a day-night doubleheader and a twin bill doubleheader, a single admission doubleheader, day-night doubleheaders usually have a few hours between games to clear out the stadium and then refill it, and it's treated as separate admissions. And it makes for a very long day for those who are either playing in the games or have anything to do with putting on those games. But I think there would be some exceptions to it, given that you're extending the All-Star break by one day. There's no action on that Friday. Now you're starting back on that Saturday. And really, it's the best day possible on the baseball calendar to do this, because everyone would be fresh from 5 days off of games coming back in. So from that standpoint, there's really no definite deal breaker reason why you couldn't play these games, these doubleheaders on one day. And in fact, after 5 days off, many managers are hoping to get their relievers some action as quickly as they can. And by having two games in one day, that provides that opportunity. So from a practical standpoint, it's really great. But then also just from a cool factor, there's really so many different exciting possibilities of how you could present this. And there's options on how you could schedule it. You could have so much flexibility in the scheduling. You could start as early as 10 a.m. on the East Coast with a game and start staggering the games throughout the day. You could have games that are ending on the West Coast, after 11 p.m. West Coast time, and really have just wall-to-wall action throughout the day. And also it makes sense on the overall sports calendar because, of course, there's competition any time of the year on any given weekend. But on this particular weekend, just finding a way to draw attention when things such as the Open Championship or the WNBA All-Star are going on. And really, I think baseball could lean into this and make it the spectacle that it has the potential to be, MLB Day. Really, the only downside I could see to MLB Day, and this is a little bit of a reach, is the potential of rainouts, of course. Now, by starting the second half of the season one day later and playing two games in one day, you've eliminated a few makeup day options in case these games get rained out. But again, there's so many creative ways to make that work. I don't see that as an overwhelming downside by any means. And in most years, it wouldn't even be a factor. So one final thought is that, again, baseball has a unique opportunity just by the nature of the sport to play double headers. It's something that in many other sports is just not a possibility. Baseball has drifted away from doing that in most cases for many good reasons, for not playing as many double headers before. But this is one unique day on the baseball calendar where it's conducive to double headers. It fills a need for a spectacle and a celebration and to draw attention to the sport as it revs up its second half of the season. There's so much upside to it. It's really exciting to think about. So that is one idea for the innovation segment. Again, we encourage you to submit your own ideas that might be discussed on the show. You can submit those by email, nick.elam@sportsrulepod.com, X or Instagram @sportsrulepod. The next to last thing I'd like to do in this episode is to acknowledge a next to last from the past. And in most cases, this will be a next to last from the world of sports, but in some cases, it will be a next to last from pop culture or the world of news. Now, the 2025 World Series is deservedly regarded as one of the best World Series of all time. And when thinking about that series, the first games that will come to mind are likely Game 7 and Game 3. Game 3 because it ended on a walk-off home run in the bottom of the 18th inning by Freddie Freeman and had too many crazy plays before that to count. And in Game 7, because it started with just an insane matchup of future first ballot Hall of Famers, Max Scherzer and Shohei Ohtani, and had too many crazy plays to count after that. But a really good Game 6, the next to last game of that series, is the subject of this next to last. The Blue Jays entered that game leading 3-2, and they were coming home to Rogers Center with the chance to clinch their first championship since 1993. The starting pitchers in that game, Blue Jays, Kevin Gossman, and for the Dodgers, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who went on to win the World Series MVP, both had solid outings. The game was 3-1 going through the 6th inning, and with all those runs scoring with 2 outs. And then the Blue Jays kept knocking on the door. They had runners in scoring position in the 6th, the 7th, the 8th, could not score. And then that set up the 9th inning where they were still within striking distance, down just 2 runs, with a chance to win the World Series. And in the bottom of the 9th, the Blue Jays didn't just have runners in scoring position. They had runners on 2nd and 3rd with no one out. Again, down 3-1 in the game. And those 2 runners reached in bizarre ways. Alejandro Kirk reached by getting hit with a pitch on an 0-2 count. And then Addison Barger hit a line drive to deep left center field that actually wedged under the wall for an automatic double that put the runners at 2nd and 3rd. At that point, Dodgers manager Dave Roberts made the bold move to bring in a starting pitcher, the pitcher who was scheduled to start Game 7 the next day, Tyler Glasnow, to try to save the Dodgers season. And on the very first pitch that Glasnow threw, he was able to get Ernie Clement out on a infield pop-up. Glasnow then finished the job just 2 pitches later with one of the most stunning and jaw-dropping double plays in baseball history. Andres Jimenez hit a line drive to left field that off the bat looked like it might be a game-tying single, but it held up in the air long enough for Kike Hernandez, the Dodgers left fielder, to make a running catch. And he made an alert play by throwing to second base to double off Addison Barger, who had drifted way too far off of second base. Miguel Rojas was covering for the Dodgers at second, made a great catch on a tricky hop, and that ended the game. And then, of course, Miguel Rojas would have his own contribution in another way, an even more dramatic way, the next night in Game 7 when he hit a game-tying home run in the 9th inning en route to a Dodgers victory. And the last thing I'd like to do in this episode is to thank all of you for your engagement with Sports Rule Pod. Remember, if you have an idea for a sports rule change or an innovation that you'd like for me to scrutinize on a future episode, please submit that idea by email, nick.elam@sportsrulepod.com, or by X or Instagram @sportsrulepod. Like or subscribe wherever you follow the podcast, and look for Season 1 episodes to be released every 2 weeks on Friday mornings. Thanks. We'll see you next time.